Imagine the 1960s, the roads were free, the air smelled like gasoline and victory, and America was obsessed with one thing: speed. Among all the roaring beasts of that golden era, one name stood above the rest: the Shelby Cobra 427, 1966. This car wasn't just built to drive, it was built to dominate. When you pressed the pedal, the world blurred. The Cobra could hit a mind-blowing 165 miles per hour, that's over 260 kilometers per hour, and it did it with pure muscle, no computers, no modern traction control, just raw American power and the courage to control it. Drivers said it felt like wrestling with thunder: one wrong move, and you'd lose, but if you tamed it, you ruled the road. The body was lightweight, almost fragile looking, but that was the secret. Aluminum and fiberglass made it light enough to fly, and when you combined that with an engine that roared like a wild animal, the Shelby Cobra turned into a legend on wheels. Engine details. Under its hood lived a 7.0-liter Ford the 5.8, a monster producing around 425 horsepower, though many say the real number was even higher. The engine screamed through side-mounted exhaust pipes, shaking the ground with every rev. The power-to-weight ratio was insane, giving it acceleration that could match modern supercars even today. The sound wasn't just noise, it was a declaration of war against limits. Even decades later, car lovers around the world still dream of that metallic blue body with white racing stripes slicing through the air. The Shelby Cobra 427 wasn't just fast, it was fearless, untamed, and unforgettable. And that was only the beginning, because the next car on our list took speed to a whole new level. If the Shelby Cobra was pure chaos on wheels, the next beast was pure American precision: the 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88. This wasn't just another Corvette, it was a weapon disguised as a car. Built for racers, not Sunday drivers. Chevy didn't even advertise it properly, they didn't want ordinary people to buy it. Because this machine wasn't meant to be tamed by just anyone. The L88 was a secret supercar of its time, one that could outrun nearly everything on American soil. Its top speed? Around 170 miles per hour, and it could launch from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds, blistering fast for the 60s. Imagine a time when most cars struggled to reach 100 miles per hour, and this monster was flying down the track like a missile in motion. Only a handful of people ever got to drive it, because Chevy produced fewer than 20 units. It wasn't about mass production, it was about dominance. The L88 was built to destroy competition on the racetrack and leave behind a legend that very few cars could touch. Engine details. Under the hood was a 7.0-liter, 427 cubic inch V8 engine, officially rated at 430 horsepower, but insiders knew it was much more. In truth, the L88 pushed close to 550 horsepower, a figure Chevy deliberately downplayed radio or heater because this car wasn't about comfort. It was all about performance. Every inch of the Corvette L88 screamed "race me." The rumble of the V8 was raw, deep, and violent, like a thunderstorm trapped under the hood. And when it hit the open road, it felt alive, unpredictable, and dangerously fast. The 1967 Corvette L88 wasn't built to please everyone, it was built for the few who dared to handle it. And that's what made it a legend. But if you thought this was the limit of American speed, wait until you see what Ford unleashed next. The year was 1966, and America was ready for revenge. After being humiliated by Ferrari at the world's greatest race, Ford decided to do something unthinkable: build a car that would crush the Italians on their own turf. The result? The Ford GT40 Mk2, a machine that didn't just win races, it rewrote history. The GT40 wasn't born for the streets, it was born for the track. It wasn't about style or luxury, it was about victory. When it roared down the Le Mans straight, it didn't sound like a car, it sounded like a declaration of war. And it backed it up, hitting an insane top speed of around 210 miles per hour, a number almost unthinkable in the mid-60s. At a time when even 150 miles per hour was considered crazy, the GT40 left the competition gasping for air. In 1966, the world watched as Ford did the impossible, defeating Ferrari and taking the top 3 spots at Le Mans. It wasn't just a win, it was a message: America could build not only muscle but mastery. The GT40 became a symbol of power, pride, and precision, a car that turned failure into glory. Engine details. Under its rear hood sat a 7.0-liter Ford the 58, the same engine that gave life to Ford's NASCAR monsters. It produced around 485 horsepower, but it felt like much more when you heard that deep, rolling thunder from the exhaust. The engine was paired with a 4-speed manual gearbox, sending raw power to the rear wheels with brutal efficiency. The GT40's design was all about aerodynamics: a low, wide body just 40 inches tall, that's where the 40 in its name came from. Every curve, every vent had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. The combination of lightweight and monstrous torque gave it the kind of acceleration that could make even professional drivers sweat. When the GT40 crossed the finish line at Le Mans, it didn't just beat Ferrari, it buried them. The world had witnessed a legend being born. Even today, decades later, the GT40 stands as one of the greatest racing machines ever created. And while Ford ruled the racetrack, another name was quietly rising on the streets, a car that started a revolution for the everyday driver. By the late 1960s, the streets of America had become a battlefield of horsepower, and Dodge arrived with a machine that would rule them all. The 1968 Dodge Charger R/T wasn't just a car, it was a statement of dominance, a masterpiece of muscle that looked as deadly as it sounded. When you saw it, you didn't forget it. Long hood, fastback roofline, hidden headlights, the Charger didn't whisper for attention, it demanded it. And once you hit the ignition, that deep rumble told you exactly what it was made for. The Charger R/T could reach a top speed of around 145 miles per hour, and when it launched from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds, it felt like a rocket wrapped in steel. It became an instant icon, starring in movies like Bullitt and later The Dukes of Hazzard, turning it into a symbol of rebellion, style, and unstoppable force. The Charger didn't just move, it commanded the road. Every inch of it spoke of raw power and unfiltered attitude, the kind of presence that made other cars quietly step aside. Engine details. Under the hood roared the legendary 7.0-liter, 426 cubic inch, Hemi V8, the heart and soul of the Charger R/T, officially rated at 425 horsepower, but in reality, it pushed far beyond that. The Hemi engine was named for its hemispherical combustion chambers, a design that made power delivery brutal and immediate. Every press of the throttle felt like unleashing a thunderstorm. The sound was pure music for car lovers, deep, violent, and alive. The rear tires screamed for mercy as the torque ripped through the asphalt. Yet for all its madness, the Charger handled with surprising balance, combining speed and control in a way few cars could match at the time. The Dodge Charger R/T wasn't just another muscle car, it was the muscle car. It represented everything the American car culture stood for: strength, speed, and defiance. Even today, more than half a century later, that bold design and that monstrous Hemi engine remain unmatched icons of power. And with that, the legend of America's 1960s Speed Kings comes full circle, 5 machines that didn't just define an era, but created a legacy that still burns on every highway today. Before supercars ruled the highways, there was one car that changed everything: the Pontiac GTO, 1964. It wasn't the most expensive, it wasn't the most luxurious, but it was the spark that started a revolution. This was the car that made America fall in love with muscle. When the GTO rolled out, it didn't whisper, it roared. It was the kind of car that made heads turn on every street corner. With a top speed of around 115 miles per hour, it might sound modest today, but in 1964, that was pure madness. More importantly, it wasn't just about speed, it was about power that anyone could feel. You didn't have to be a racer to own a GTO, you just had to love the thrill of acceleration, the rumble of a V8, and the feeling of being unstoppable. This car was the birth of the muscle car era, the first to combine raw performance with street style. It gave ordinary people the power of a racing machine, and that's why it became an instant icon. Teenagers dreamed of it, adults wanted it, and every other car company rushed to copy it. The Pontiac GTO didn't just make history, it defined it. Engine details. At its heart was a 6.4-liter, 389 cubic inch V8 engine that produced up to 348 horsepower when equipped with the legendary tri-power carburetor setup, 3 two-barrel carburetors feeding the beast. The result? Explosive acceleration that could send the GTO from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds, which was shocking for the early 60s. The engine sound was deep, confident, and raw, a growl that became the soundtrack of freedom. Every rev reminded you that this wasn't just a car, it was rebellion on 4 wheels. Pontiac didn't just build the GTO to be fast, they built it to make a statement. And it worked. This machine inspired an entire generation of high-performance American cars. The 1964 Pontiac GTO proved one simple truth: speed isn't just about numbers, it's about attitude. And that attitude still echoes today in every muscle car that dares to call itself powerful. But while Pontiac created the legend of muscle, one more car from the decade would bring style, strength, and pure dominance together like never before.